Welcome to Passion Inspires. Join us as we explore the world of marketing and design and share insights and stories that spark inspiration and drive meaningful change. Welcome to Passion Inspires, and I'm so honored to have Jeff Johnson with me today, a great friend and a partner in the work that we do together.
Yeah, amen.
And I would love for you to go all the way back. We'll just jump right in and talk about, I think it was 2020, June or July, that we first met in the coffee shop. Why did you feel a need to meet together?
Yeah, I do remember that very distinctly. We were in the throes of planning an event, but it wasn't just an event. We would do an event every year, but this event was centered around unveiling a very large vision that God had given us as a ministry, and it was bigger and more audacious than anything we had ever done. It was all centered around this goal of reaching 1 million people with the gospel, and to raise $1 million to do it was on a scale we've never done at International Needs before. And so we were trying to plan this meeting and this event to unveil the vision. And if you go all the way back, even into my personal history with nonprofit work, which spans 25 years, but even the IN version of it, I think it's safe to say events were not our strong suit. We would struggle really trying to put them off well. And superimposed upon that, then we had lost our marketing and communications person. So we were a little bit like a ship without a rudder. And so I had engaged a friend of mine that was involved in fundraising and so forth to sort of help us put together the event. And as I was talking to him, I'm like, man, we really need some communications help with this. And he says, I know a guy. His name is Jeff. He has this company called Scott Allen Creative. Let me see if he can meet us for coffee. So you met Mike and I at a coffee shop somewhere on 28th Street. I can't remember where. And I remember it distinctly because there was two parts to it. You came in, we met, we got to know each other a little bit. We chatted a little bit about the ministry. We chatted a little bit about the idea for the event. But I remember distinctly at the end of that, Mike he had to move on, and you and I just stayed. And
Yeah.
you asked me questions, and they were the type of questions that were centered around wanting to get to know the heart behind what I wanted to do. That was very distinctive to me because I've had a lot of experience with marketing and communications people, and they always come in bigger than life, and they always come in having every single answer, and they come in almost with an assumption of, you guys don't really know what you need, but we do. If you just listen to us, we'll make it all okay. And it just struck me that you didn't do that. You just got to know us as a ministry. You got to know me, and you really sought to understand what we wanted to have happen during not just that $1 million campaign, but that event. And I walked away going, this guy's genuine. I think he really, truly wants to see us succeed. It didn't feel like a, client vendor potential relationship. So it was very, very, it was a poignant moment. That's not going too far to say that.
Well, what I remember the most walking away from that meeting, Jeff, was the question that I'd asked you about what do your donors look like?
Sure.
And you said they're very loyal.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them have been overseas and visited our partners, and they stay with us because they have had that intimate, true connection on the field with people overseas that are partnering with you in this work of international needs. And that idea of loyalty really struck me.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it was at a time during COVID when we couldn't really bring a lot of people in from overseas, and it had been a while since people had seen. All the
Correct.
trips had been delayed,
Right.
obviously, with COVID.
Right.
So you had done a beautiful job of gathering videos from all these partners. And like our job was just to step aside and let the partners shine, bring the people back into the partners' lives again. There was an
Mhm.
interview with a gentleman in Africa. You hear their chickens cackling in the background. The guy from Egypt, you hear the
Yeah, yeah,
traffic
yeah,
behind
yeah.
him. But it was so beautifully genuine.
And and I remember that video because that really, really was kind of your resume and calling card for us. Because at that point, we were just looking to utilize your services to help us with the event. Um, and unbeknownst to you, I mean, prior to that, I've been doing this kind of work for 20 years and have had multiple videos, design projects, things like that created. And they were every single one. I mean, they were great. They were well done. They were well produced videos. I mean, the work was amazing, but everyone just kind of left me a little bit underwhelmed, you know? And if I'm honest, I was always a bit disappointed going, it's not what was really in my heart.
Mhm.
And I know, I mean, you can attest, trying to produce what someone else has in their heart is probably the most difficult thing on the planet to do, and that video was actually one of those things where, if I'm honest, I explained what we had and what I wanted, but that old adage is, I don't exactly know what I want, but as soon as I see it, I'll know.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those moments, but I remember when you showed us that video in our conference room at IN, I mean, it was very an emotional moment for me because you did it. I'm like, that's it. I couldn't communicate what I wanted. I was feeling what I wanted. And somehow you were able, through your group, to create it. I mean, you captured our partners, you captured the heart of what we were doing. It was an incredible moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is probably the first time in 20 years
Wow.
that there's been a video that's really touched my heart,
Wow.
and gone beyond. In fact, another humorous story, if you and you may remember this around that video when we actually played it at the event. We had a small worship team that was leading some music, and we had a young lady that was part of the team, and the video showed, and then they were going to get up and um, lead in a little bit of worship, and all of a sudden the video's done, and we can't find her anywhere. And it's like, where'd she go? Where's Erin? We can't find her. And she came back and she said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I watched that video and it just moved me to tears."
Wow.
And I had to go get myself back together before I could come back up on the stage. And everybody that night
Mm.
remarked about that video because I think what you did, it I mean, the video was professionally done. It was well done. It was well put together. All of that was incredible, but your entire team somehow tapped into the heart behind IN and our partners when you put it together. So it we still use it to this day, and it was amazing. And from that moment on, that was the moment I'm like, okay, we're looking for long-term help with telling our story. This is a relationship that we're going after. And so that coffee shop, that event, but that video was actually the origin of what's been a beautiful 5 years.
It has been for me
Yeah.
too, Jeff, personally. I remember thinking beyond the video, even for the event, um, I had offered to help you with displays.
Mhm.
And I was working in my garage creating these displays. And my wife said, "What are you doing?" Because I'm not normally building things
Yeah.
in my garage. This is, anyway. I said, "I can't describe it, Kathy. I just feel like I'm compelled to want to do this because it brings back kind of the tenderness of my relationship with the Lord that I had lost.
Sure.
But just having your relationship with you and
Mhm.
seeing your love for Christ and your partner's love that was motivating them to do all their work really was an incredible gift back to me as a
Yeah.
person because I had not been overseas since I was 23 years old
Wow.
when
Wow.
I was in Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the Lord said, "Here's a gift." I'm going to give you this gift of a relationship. And you were that gift to me. So,
And I that's I feel like that does sum up our partnership and relationship because it has given both ways, which is
mhm.
beautiful. And what's unique about the IN relationship in terms of our global network is it's knitted together via relationship and via commitment to each other. And in a microcosm, I think our relationship between International Needs and Scott Allen Creative has become exactly the same thing. We don't look at you as a vendor that provides a communication service to us. We look at you guys and your team as part of us.
Yeah,
And it's beautiful.
that's how we feel too, Jeff.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing that thread of an idea really struck me when we did that first video. And these partners that are living, I believe, in over about 20 countries throughout the world, across the globe.
Correct. Yeah.
That's what they kept saying, that international needs don't tell us what to do.
Mhm.
They allow us to do what we feel that we need to do to reach our people. And do you want to talk about that? Because that's kind of a unique
It's
model.
huge. It is, and it goes all the way back to, the origins of international needs in 1974 when our founder, who was from New Zealand, went to a mission conference about international mission conference. Everybody who is everybody in missions was there. The whole goal was how do we reach the world for Christ? And at that moment, the Lord impressed upon our founder, Ray Harrison, a new model. He said, I want you to not send missionaries, and there's nothing wrong with sending missionaries. It's impactful, it's important, it's good. There's huge history around that. So I'm not making a judgment statement on that. But he said, what I want you to do is I want you to go into countries and I want you to identify people that I, the Lord, have a calling on them to reach their own people. And so that's what Ray did. And that was the genesis of international needs that now spans 32 countries globally. Are these leaders that have a commitment to the Lord, have a commitment to the people of their own country, own their own visions, their own passions, their own callings, and we all come together going, I'm for you, I'm for you, I'm for you, you're for me, and we come together in what I love to call a covenant partnership to do things on a scale that we could not do individually. Love this African proverb that says if you want to go far, go together. And
Well,
I'm like, that explains really what international needs is. All of these incredible partners around the world, they could do a certain amount of things on their own, but coming together through the synergy and the partnership of a network can go infinitely beyond. I mean, it's scriptural. Paul writes about infinitely beyond what we could ever dare to even dream or imagine. That's what happens in the ministries with international needs because we all come together and our partnership is exactly like that. I think you tapped into that probably when you listened to
yeah,
our partners when they
yeah,
were sharing.
yeah. Those aha moments,
Yeah, yeah.
the bulb starting going
Yeah,
off.
yeah.
Can you give me just maybe two examples, maybe from Ghana or whatever countries you would choose, but two beautiful examples of how that looks different from one country to another, or one culture to another? Like,
Sure.
for example, for Nepal, they're helping a lot of women, Ghana, a lot of children. Just paint that picture real briefly, please, about how that looks differently, because it does look different in every one, doesn't it?
It truly does. I mean, I think the two examples that stand out, you mentioned Ghana. I mean, that's one. The centerpiece of Ghana is ministry, is children and schools. It's not that they don't do other things, but the calling and the heart of the kind of the founder of our International Needs Ghana ministry, Walter Pinpong, was vulnerable women who he rescued out of an indigenous slave culture, but then also understood the incredible power and value of the next generation in kids. So education, schools, empowerment of vulnerable women are at the centerpiece where is if you look at some other countries, well, I just came from Egypt. Egypt is not so much education, but there's a lot of refugees and there's a lot of individuals that have come to Egypt. So it's a deeper compassion-oriented ministry as well as an outreach and pastor and church planting and training ministry. And so each ministry has a context that is not only connected to the calling of its leader, but the interesting dynamics of the country as a whole. Everything at its core is the gospel of Jesus Christ. Everything at its core starts there, but it looks different depending on the context and the needs and the callings of our partners around the world.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I'd like to transition a little bit to we've been working together for 5 years. What does that look like? Like, paint a picture, please, of what that looks like, kind of on all the different levels. Like, there's
Mhm.
several different dimensions. One of the things I absolutely love about working with you is that I feel like you have created a culture of unity where the development team, the marketing team, major donor relationships, outgoing communications, trips overseas, planned giving, all these different dimensions are one by one coming neath that unified umbrella
Mhm.
of working together on all these different levels, both in project management and getting projects done, but also within your whole team of people that are have really donor stewardship in mind, especially, or growing partners. And
Mhm.
it's really a credit to your leadership. Can you talk about what that looks like, Jeff, so that people can? Because sometimes those marketing and development teams become isolated and
Sure.
silos. And
They can. And I think that's what is unique about our partnership is your engagement with us spans so many different places. It's not just like, okay, you're hanging out with me, the executive director, and we're trying to create things and we give you your marching orders and then you produce a product. I mean, oftentimes that's the dynamic with that relationship, but what's different between ours is relationship with our entire staff.
yeah,
You know, when you come to our office, I mean, you bring donuts. That's a big step. No, just that's aside. But you interact with everyone. So our child assistance programs, you're interacting with our staff there, our executive staff, our fundraising staff, our program staff. I mean, you know them, they know you. So at its core, it's which again is keeps coming back to this whole theme of relationship. You know, we have a relationship together. We don't look at you as an outsider. You're part of us. We look forward to the times when you come. And I think we have a great balance of relationship building, getting to know each other, connecting with each other, as well as, I mean, there's work to be done. So there's a moment where you roll up your sleeves and, okay, got to get these things planned. We got to get the videos produced. We got to get the design projects created. Got to do all of that. So there's a really nice mix of work and project production that needs to happen, but it does it in the context of relationship. My brother, who was had a counseling practice for a long, 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 long time, he always used to say this phrase: "People first, things second." And I've always grabbed a hold of that as a value even for my own life. And I think that is also a key piece of what we have together is it's people first. It's our partner's relationship, it's our relationship, it's your relationship. It's the people that are engaged in this. We're doing it together. So that supersedes let's just produce. There is, like I said, there is a moment you have to get things done, and you do it incredibly well. But I think we never sacrifice the relational side of it in the midst of it. And frankly, I think it helps you know what to create. And I think it helps you in your creative process to be able to read our minds, if you will, and read our hearts and come up with something. The other piece of that, though, that I've really appreciated is your humbleness. You throw a project in front of us and you genuinely say, if you don't like it, tell us. We want to know. We'll go back, we'll tweak it. We want to create what you want. And that's sometimes rare because as you're an artist, you'll know. I mean, it can sometimes feel like a critique. You've spent hours creating something, you're excited about it, and then you present it and they're like, don't like it, you know?
Yeah.
And, and I recognize and understand the amount of time, effort, and energies put into things, but I also very much appreciate the fact that you hold it open-handed, going, "This needs to work for you.
Yeah, that's right.
If you
That's the
want to
crux.
send us back to tweak it, do it. We want to do this," which is different from we will do it because it's part of a client-vendor relationship
Mm.
versus we want to do it, which I think is the secret sauce, if you want my honest opinion, because it opens up a deeper level of communication that actually even helps me and our staff understand what we want. I think you would say sometimes, because I've seen this look when I'm kind of waffling on and you're like, I'm not sure he even really knows what he wants. And you're correct. And you have a gift, and your staff has a gift of guiding us. And again, it's this relational thing of dialogue, question, and answer that helps clarify what we're trying to go after. There are many meetings I've come into going, I'm just kind of regurgitating all over the table here. And you guys just sit there and I mean, you're taking copious notes and you're asking questions and we emerge 30 minutes, 40 minutes later. I'm walking out with a greater level of clarity than I had. And I think you had a greater level of clarity. And I think that doesn't happen if you just focus on, okay, we need to produce a product. I need the content so I can produce a product. You know, the product will come once the clarity and the understanding
Yeah, that's right.
is there,
Yeah.
and so I think that phrase, people first, things second, really does define the beauty of our relationship and how effective you are at introducing us literally to the world, which and to our own community, which is a place I would love to chat a little bit about because it's really unique.
Jeff, I think so often about, you talk about that process, and it's so true, though. It's not like I'd listened to you 5 years ago. Now we're all set for five
Correct.
years. Because what is God saying to you today?
Hmm.
What are the
Hmm.
donors saying? What are your partners saying? It's very organic and it's living, right? It's
Right.
your movement is a living movement, and we need to make sure that we don't jump out of the stream. We stay in that stream
Hmm.
so that we can be in tune to what's happening in your organization, what
Right.
what your goals are. I love the fact that we've done so many different kinds of projects for you, Jeff. We're ready to launch your new website. I'm so
Hmm.
excited about that. But just that you have given us the blessing and opportunity just to serve you and complement your team in whatever dimensions you need to be complimented in,
Correct.
and not to take the place of any of your team members, but just to come alongside and fill those gaps.
Which is interesting. When I took this role 7 years ago, I'd been involved in this kind of work for over 2 decades. And when I discovered this position at International Needs, which literally was in my own community, I'd never heard of them.
Wow.
And I mean, and in
And
the
you had been overseas
and I
for
had
several.
been overseas and I had been working in West Michigan and all of this. I thought I knew the mission world within my own community. And here sits this huge global organization right in West Michigan that I had never heard of. And what was interesting is wherever I would go, people would say, International Needs. I haven't heard of them, and I explain where they are, where we are, where our offices are in a very prominent location right in West Michigan. And they're like, oh yeah, I drive by that building all the time. I didn't know anything existed there. And I see that that was a mission I think that we have been on over 5 years is one, international needs is known globally, but it's not really known locally. What you have helped us to do is become known locally as well. Because I always used to say this, we have an incredible story that nobody knows. And I mean, many, many nonprofits are going to say exactly the same thing. We have the most incredible story ever, and they should believe that, and it's true. And we fall in that same line, and it's like, okay, it's got this great story that needs to get out, and we just had no way and no strategy to begin to get it out, to let people know what's happening. And I think I have seen a difference. I mean, literally, um, I met someone waiting in line at a restaurant earlier this week, and we were just chatting a little bit. And I had kind of known them from a years past, and like, oh, so what are you doing now? And I mentioned the name International Needs. She's like, yeah, I think I've seen some stuff about you. And that spoke volumes to me because it's like, okay, there's an awareness now that is being created even in our own community. I mean, our growth, um, our organization since this 5 years that we have been working together has grown probably by 25%. We've had the best year this year, not only in ministry impact, but also in raising the resource that we need to support our partners around the world. We've had the best year ever. For 5 straight years, we've just done a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more. And a lot of that goes to the fact that we're we have a story that will get people excited. If you've said this to me often, if we can just make people aware of that story, and then the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah,
I have this belief that I think at its core, people want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves.
absolutely.
They absolutely do. And as you help us tell our story, and I'm not trying to say we're the biggest, best thing on the planet, but we are a cool story and we're worth getting involved with. And you've helped us tell that story for people as well that are looking for something that aligns with their own heart calling to get engaged with. So, we talk about all this wonderful relational stuff, but it's played out in black and white growth. Our organization is stronger, its impact is greater, its reach is greater, its capacity is greater. We're more well known, and that is a metric that also defines, the value of what you've brought to international needs.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because so many conversations I have with other nonprofits, they're asking me to prove my ROI.
Sure.
And I get it. I understand
Mhm.
it. Like if they're going to hire a direct mail company, that direct mail can say, "Well, we'll give you a 4.8 R ROI on this mailing." And I'll say to them, "Well, I can't prove that I can give that for you, but we're going to make sure that your story is true to who you are and would resonate to someone who cares about what you do and your mission,
Right.
and it'll have a greater impact." It might not be a 4 point whatever percent. I don't know, maybe it'd be 3%,
Mhm.
but overall, we hope it's gonna be 25%, 100%, 200%. You know,
Right.
it's a different way to think of things,
It
but I still
is.
have a hard time pitching Scott Allen Creative to some nonprofits because of that. I can't prove their ROI.
Sure.
I don't know what else to say about that.
Well,
I'm
I
not
mean,
sure, but you were talking about this long-term 5-year relationship,
mhm.
and you're seeing that ROI in a healthy, steady growth. Not only in greatly successful campaigns like the Million for a Million,
Correct.
but in healthy, long-term sustainable growth.
which
Adding donors.
absolutely. I mean, and I honestly have this conversation, with my board about, our relationship, and is it valuable and is it working? And so I mean, we do have metrics. I can tell you, we have every year we have a greater number of people giving to the ministry. Well, why is that? I would argue it's because they're reading our stuff. They're being impacted by our stuff. They're being communicated to in positive ways that are motivating them to get behind us. We track when we send something out, how many people, when we send an email out, how many people are opening our email. That is growing every year, and a lot of that has to do with the help that you have given us to create and explain the compelling story that we are. So we actually do have hardcore metrics of growth that I think speak directly to the marketing and communication world of a black and white tangible impact. We do not lose. I don't have the numbers with me, but we lose fewer and fewer existing donors every year. They stick with us. Well, why do they stick with us? It's because we're communicating with them. The standard practice in nonprofits is if you do not communicate with your donors, they'll move on because there are a lot of other very good, compelling, competing things for their attention. So if you can't stay in front of them, they will move on. So I think the fact that we do not lose a lot of our friends of the ministry speaks to the fact that we're communicating well. We're communicating, and it's not just let us tell you how great we are. It's let us thank you. I mean, that's a whole piece of what you give as well. It's not just promoting the ministry, but it's making those that give to the ministry feel valued and finding creative ways to help everyone feel like they're engaged in part of the ministry. There's a cycle called, ask, thank, report, which is a fundamental kind of fundraising development thing. And, I mean, nonprofits need resource. We can't have an impact without resource. And so that is a cycle that we do. And so you're working not only just in the reporting side of, hey, you've given a gift and it's done what it's supposed to do. You're great with that, but you're also helping us create meaningful ways to say thank you for people that have given sacrificially, on behalf of our organization, and to communicate what that actually means to me personally, to our organization, and to our partners around the field. So it's a full cycle relationship, but our growth is, I think, a metric that says there's a return on the investment that we have given on your behalf.
Donor retention is
It's huge.
just as critical as donor growth, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the numbers, if you're losing as many donors as you're gaining, you're not.
Yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, in some ways, we're hurting the mission by losing that
Right,
many donors, right?
right.
Because that means they don't care about us anymore or your work anymore.
I remember one board meeting, it's about 2 years into our relationship, and, because I'm always laying out things of where we're going and what we're doing, and I remember he'd been part of our IN board probably for about 12 years now. I mean, it's unsolicited. He just kind of said, this is really cool. I feel like we've really upped our game in how we're communicating to people. He
Yeah.
said it's fantastic. And it was unsolicited, it wasn't even part of the conversation, but it spoke to me saying it's resonating. People are seeing a difference. People are seeing a quality of communication that is significant.
Yeah, I would just like to throw in there as a artist designer background, just that you gave us an opportunity to refresh your brand
Sure.
because it felt a little bit stale as far as the color palette and some of the fonts. And sometimes you think, well, it's just fonts and it's just colors. But we really believe, as do you, that what that looks like visually is like a personality. Do people feel welcome? Do they feel
Correct.
like some joy and excitement? And if all the colors are dark or dull, they're not going to feel that through the visual element of your communications. And I just thank you for giving us that honor of being able to redo that or refresh that for you.
Well, and I think that it's a very interesting example of another value of our partnership is because that wasn't on my radar screen at all.
Probably not.
It was not. I mean, I'm off doing a million other things, and refreshing the brand was I had not even thought about it. But you took the initiative, which is what I appreciated. It wasn't just, all right, you tell us what we need to produce and we're going to produce it for you. That's a great example of how you spoke to me of like, no, we're part of this group because we're going to be proactive. We're going to be intentional and assertive to say, hey, you need to do this. Do you? And because as soon as you did, I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have thought about that, but just didn't. And then I remember when your staff came in and did the presentation of the new brand and
Yeah,
the
it was a
refresh.
joyful time.
Yeah, it was fun. It really was fun.
Well, that's what I love about a long-term relationship too, Jeff, is that you keep growing together and you look at every dimension step by step each year as we have a capacity to move on to another
Sure.
area that can be improved or, a focus that should be done that year that wasn't needed a year ago. I love that part of it because
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like we're growing together.
Right.
Um, I'd like to just talk for a moment about my trip to Kenya.
Sure.
Because like I said, I had not been to Africa since 1983,
Mm.
and I thought after my 1983 trip at 23 years old that I was gonna be living in Africa the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And circumstances changed, and my wife and I were just not able to do that with 11 children, go overseas. And the missions organizations we had talked to at the time really didn't want us to have a lot of children.
Mm-hmm.
So what I felt was my calling was not there anymore in my life, but I felt like you gave that a rebirth.
Mm. That's awesome.
I remember when you first asked me to go to Kenya, I thought, I'm not sure. I have 18 grandchildren, and I used to be really courageous, but what if I get sick and die?
Yeah. No, I know. I
And I
know.
was hesitating. I
Exactly.
literally had zero faith, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But when you gave me that privilege of
Yeah.
going with Izzy and Patty and Dale and Don Day and with my wife, and just walking through the Kibera slums and just walking through in between those shacks of metal and wood, these dirt paths where irrigation ditches were right next to your feet and slippery
Mm-hmm.
dirt paths, and you're going up and down all through what is just a continuous maze of shacks thrown
Mm-hmm.
together that
Mm-hmm.
are now people's homes. And I just so grateful that Izzy saw that the need for me to go into the need for us to
Mm-hmm.
go into those homes and meet those families and literally sit in a 8 by 10 area where a family of 4 is living, and that is their home, and that's it. And they had to buy water. They didn't have their own bathroom. Some of them had a little kind of kitchen supplies on the side. And realizing that in that dark place, the next day going to a brick building, and as my wife and I were walking down this path to this brick building, we start hearing children singing
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
hearing their joy, and the teacher interacting with them, asking them questions, and they're all responding excitedly to his question by giving him an answer, and the light in that dark place that international needs partners are, and the joy and love that you're bringing to these children, and the privilege of interviewing some of these families. I think one of my favorite interviews was with a cook. Because he said, "Yeah, I hear the children singing, and I hear them listen, Bible stories over there." And he said, "I became a Christian because I was a cook at
Right.
to serve these
Right.
children on a Saturday morning."
Right.
And I thought, that is so beautiful. The light just continues to shine in people's hearts in
Yeah,
all
yeah,
different
yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I want to thank you for that privilege.
Well, and I mean, it was a joy to have you come. And, again, you talk about return on investment, what you produced for us in that context in terms of being able to tell the story of Kibera and Kenya was phenomenal, and you probably know better than I, but it's really difficult, to communicate something in 2 or 3 dimensions, visual and audio, that y- has a 5 sense, 5 dimension experience. I mean, that's why we love people to go to the field, because you experience something at different dimensions than you can if you just see it and hear it, because you don't have the smells and all of the context. And what was great when you came back, you did a great job at capturing all of those dimensions, and capturing what I call the golden nuggets, the cook, and he's chatting with you for 10 minutes, but there's 3 sentences in there that are just incredibly poignant, and
Mm.
did a great job at, capturing those things and pulling those things out. Which, again, I mean, I've brought others to the field to categorize and tell the story, and but again, I think I mean, your heart comes through. And just comes back to that. It's your heart's engaged in this, and I know you well enough that, and I would say this, that I don't think this is just unique for you with our partnership. I do think there's a uniqueness to it, but I'm pretty confident that you give this same kind of thing to any of your partners and clients that you're working with, because I've heard you talk about other ones that you're working with, and I've heard you talk about how meaningful the work is that they've done, and how excited and how impacted you have been by what you have done with their cause. I think that is something that's very strategic and very fundamental to what you have to offer. I think you give of yourself, not just of your time and talent. And there is a difference. We can give our time and talent and keep ourselves a little bit isolated. I think are in this business not just to create marketing and communications. I think you're in this business because it's a calling for you. And I think that comes out with every single relationship that you have. Sounds like a Scott Allen commercial, but it's from the heart. It really is.
I think, thank you so much for that, brother. You are always so kind. You really are. And I think I keep thinking it might, I thought, where did that come from? But I go all the way back to when I was 21 years old, and I had a grandfather who was a Dutch immigrant, so
Mm.
a very gruff Dutch brogue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Didn't understand my long hair and 70s
Yeah,
vibe, put
yeah,
it that
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
Um, and I just felt distant from him, and I
mm,
really kind of resented my Dutch upbringing.
mm-hmm.
And then at Kendall, we had a project where we could do a collage of someone's life, and everyone did rock stars and athletes and all this, musical stars and all that kind of stuff. And for some reason, I had in my thought, well, I need to do my grandpa.
Mm.
So I asked him if he would be okay with that, and he said, "Yeah, come on over Thursday night, and I'll get some pictures together so that you can do illustrations of my life story."
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went into the living room, he was sitting in his easy chair and invited me to sit on the sofa. And in front of us on the coffee table were 2 boxes. One was a round box, and he opened it up, and it had photos of his life.
Mm-hmm.
These 2 boxes represented his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Grandpa, tell me about some of these stories." And he would go through the box one photo
Mm.
at a time. But when he would grab a photo and kind of reflect on it, I would ask him,
Mm-hmm.
what is that memory? So he'd One photo was his passport at 16 years old, and he talked about leaving the Netherlands and never heard about God or
Yeah.
Christ. Came to the United States, didn't know English. He had eggs the whole way in the train from New York Harbor to Minnesota because that's the only thing he knew how to order on the menu. Then he worked on a farm for a
Yeah.
Baptist guy.
Yeah.
You know, my grandpa had never heard about God, and the Baptist guy said, "You work for me, you're going to go to church with me." And
Wow.
my grandpa became a Christian, and he was the only Christian in his whole family.
Wow.
It was like God as a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And so that was just the first story. And then he
Right.
tells me the story of how he fell in love with my grandma and
Right.
how he needed to go out west and be a cowboy to make sure he was in love with my grandma. And then he came back and loved her and married her. And I'm starting hearing all these stories. I said, "You're an amazing person." And I started falling in love with him, you know, and seeing him as not this 70-year-old guy with this white mustache, but as someone, as a 16-year-old boy or as a man falling in love or raising a family. And ever since then, I thought, Lord, stories bring us together. You know,
Right.
we can love each other when we learn to care for each other, when we start understanding each other through the stories that we share. So maybe that's kind of the foundation of all of this, Jeff. I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think story is really the gateway to our own humanity. Um, it touches us at the core, I think, of who we are, because we all have a story. You know, some are more dramatic stories than others, but everyone has a story. You know, and what's unique about our work as well is we have our individual stories, but as we intersect with each other, our stories impact each other, and we both change as a result of it. You know, so your story impacts me, my story impacts you, and then our own personal stories then change, but we're also then part of a greater, faith, biblical story as well. And, I see that play out in the work that we're doing. Every project that we work on together really centers around story. I mean, telling and communicating some type of story. And it changes us,
Yeah,
as a result of it, and for the better,
absolutely.
which is kind of the magical, fun, amazing part of doing this kind of work.
Amen.
Yeah.
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 Is there anything else, Jeff, that I've missed that you would like to share before we close up here?
I mean, I think the only other thing that is worth chatting a little bit about as well is I always have kind of this saying as well as relationship sometimes is also tested in difficult times. It's easy to have a great relationship when everything is going great and everything's wonderful. And, there have been a few times and I've really appreciated it. There's one not that long ago that I remember. I mean, I put you in a difficult spot. I gave you an impossible deadline. Um, I didn't feel good about it, but I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
I felt horrible about it, but what I appreciated is you understood that and you gave me everything you had, including 2 a.m. in the morning. Now, if that happens all the time, we have an issue and we need to talk about that. But
Yeah.
I think there are moments where it gets a little bit difficult. And what I appreciate about how we've worked together is that we have the longevity and the relationship and the strength and the trust to navigate those times. If I'm asking you for something that you truly can't do, you will tell me, because you're not worried about damaging the relationship and vice versa. And I think that trust level is massive. And I do think that's something that you try to create with your clients is that there is a trust because I don't want you to say yes to me for something that you know that you really can't do, because then we're going to end up disappointing each other at the end, you know? And so I think we have a strong relationship to challenge as well as encourage each other. I mean, there are times you've looked me straight in the eye and you said, "I don't think that's a good idea." And I was incredibly passionate about it, you know? And but I've learned to trust you enough to listen to you, you know? And more often than not, you've been right, you know? But I think oftentimes in a client vendor relationship that doesn't have trust, that kind of open, honest
Hmm.
communication isn't there,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And then both sides end up getting frustrated. And so I think that would be another strength, I think, of what you bring and what we've enjoyed in our connection together, is that we have a solid trust that creates a transparency and a truth level that just makes it easier to work together and more effective and more impactful.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up because that's the reality of life, isn't it?
Correct.
Whether we're in a family relationship
Right.
or a friendship, there's going to be hard times.
Right.
And I am so grateful you brought that up. I remember, I think it was Saturday night, you were texting me, or Sunday night, texting me back and forth. And then by Monday morning, realized that the donor needed that video by Tuesday night.
Mhm.
And I thought, there is no way we're going to get that done. So I brought the need to my staff. And first thing I thought about, there's no way I'm going to get it done, but maybe we can get it done.
Mhm. Sure.
So I told you, I'm not sure if we can make the deadline,
Right.
um, but we're going to try. If we don't try, that would be the worst thing
Correct.
for Jeff, because this is a major donor and they want this done. We have to do everything we can to try to make that happen if it's possible.
Right.
So within that first day, Rachel helped me write a script. We got a voiceover done.
Oh, you did a miracle.
It
You
was,
totally
but it was
pulled a
all these
miracle.
pieces together, right? Of all the team
Yeah, yeah,
coming
yeah.
together,
Yeah.
and I'm so grateful we could do it.
Right.
But we have to try.
Correct.
And it wasn't like you were trying to pressure us, and you didn't have a choice. Your donor was asking
Right.
for this, so it didn't come from you. It came from your donor, and we knew that, so it was worth it. I'm
Right.
so glad we could. Wasn't maybe perfect, but it was what she needed for that night.
Right.
So that was good.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Amen.
Well, I'd like to close by just thanking Jody and Rachel and Annika and Lynn and Deidre and Hannah and Jen and Izzy. And am I missing some people on your team?
Yeah, that's the problem. You start naming names,
Yeah,
somebody's
maybe I'm
gonna
gonna
get
miss-
left
We're gonna miss a
out. But
bunch of people, but
yeah,
the
there are
point
so
is-
many people behind you and I.
yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to thank all of you
Amen.
guys because
Yeah.
you make this happen.
Right.
So yeah, we're deeply grateful.
Amen.